What would you do if the ring you spent months saving for, the ring you imagined slipping onto her finger one day as a symbol of forever, ended up hanging on a chain around the neck of the man she cheated on you with? Not just hanging there, but shining under the bar lights like a trophy he wore proudly. And then, to make it worse, he actually had the audacity to thank you for it. That's not a hypothetical for me. That's real. That's my story. And I'll be honest with you, it took me a long time to even be able to say it out loud without choking on the words. Because when something like that happens, you don't just feel betrayed, you feel humiliated, stripped of dignity, like the world's biggest fool. But sometimes the most humiliating moments of your life turn out to be the ones that wake you up. The ones that teach you exactly what kind of person you are when the floor gets ripped out from under you. It started a couple years ago, back when I thought I had everything figured out. I was in love. Not puppy love, not the kind where you second guess if it's real. I mean deep, consuming love. The kind where you look at her across the room and your brain flashes glimpses of a shared future. A house, kids, the two of you grey-haired and still holding hands on the porch swing. She was my girl, my partner, my everything. At least, that's what I thought. I worked long hours back then. Not because I loved the job, but because I wanted to give her more than just promises. I wanted to back up my words with something solid. Something that would prove I wasn't just another guy talking a big game. So I started saving. Every extra shift, every side gig, every time I turned down a night out with friends. It all went into that little envelope hidden in my dresser, the ring fund. I can't even describe to you what it felt like the day I finally walked into that jewelry store. My palms were sweaty, my heart pounding like I was about to propose right there to the sales lady. But when I saw it, that simple, elegant diamond ring with just enough sparkle to catch her eye without screaming for attention, I knew it was the one. I imagined her face when I opened the box, the way her hands would fly to her mouth, the way her eyes would well up with tears. That moment was what all the work, all the saving, all the sacrifices had been for. But that moment never came, because before I ever had the chance to propose, I found out about him. The friend she swore was just someone she vented to. The guy she promised was nothing more than a shoulder to lean on when I was too busy working. I don't know how long it had been going on. Long enough for inside jokes, secret photos and hotel receipts to pile up. Long enough that the betrayal felt less like a mistake, and more like a second life she'd been living right under my nose. I can't tell you what hurt more, finding out she'd cheated, or realizing that while I was planning forever, she was planning an escape route with someone else. When I confronted her, she didn't cry, she didn't beg, she just sighed, like she'd been waiting for me to catch up to reality. "You were always so busy," she said. "You didn't see me anymore." He did. That line cut deeper than any knife. I wanted to scream, to throw things, to demand how she could look me in the eye while I was out there breaking my back to build a life for us. But instead I just walked out, because some betrayals are so complete that words don't even fit. The ring stayed in the box. I couldn't bring myself to return it, couldn't pawn it off. It sat there in my drawer, silent and heavy, like a gravestone for the relationship I thought we had. I figured one day I'd sell it, maybe when I'd finally stopped caring. But for months, it just gathered dust. And then came the night that changed everything. It was a Friday, and a buddy of mine convinced me to hit a local bar. I didn't want to go. I'd been avoiding places where I might see her, where memories might sneak up on me. But he insisted, said I needed to get out, breathe some air that wasn't recycled from my apartment walls. So I went. The place was packed, music loud, drinks flowing, the kind of energy where people are buzzing with weekend relief. I was leaning against the bar, halfway through a beer, when I heard a laugh that froze me to my core. Her laugh. I turned, and there she was. And right next to her, him. My stomach dropped, but before I could slip out, something around his neck caught the light, a flash of silver, a sparkle I recognized instantly. My heart stopped. It was the ring I had bought. The ring meant for her finger, except now, it wasn't on her hand. It was hanging from a chain around his neck, like some kind of twisted prize. I stared, my vision tunneling, heat rising in my chest, and that's when he noticed me. He smirked, leaned back, and tapped the ring with his finger, like he wanted me to see it. Then he actually walked over. "You've got good taste, man," he said, grinning like we were old friends sharing a joke. "She told me you picked this out. Fits me better though, don't you think?" That moment, I don't think I'll ever forget it. The arrogance in his voice, the gleam in his eye. The casual way he wore my heartbreak like jewelry, and the worst part, she was standing right behind him, watching, not even trying to stop it. I can't describe what was going through my head. Rage, humiliation, disbelief. It all collided at once. I wanted to rip the chain off his neck, smash it into the floor, scream at her, until the whole bar went silent. But instead, I just stood there staring at him. Because in that split second, I realized something. He thought he was winning. He thought he had taken something from me, claimed some victory by parading around with my ring. But the truth, all he'd really done was expose how shallow they both were. That ring wasn't a symbol of love for them. It was just a shiny thing to flaunt, a twisted joke at my expense. And if that's what they needed to feel powerful, then maybe they weren't worth the energy of my rage. So I laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was the only thing left to do. I eyed right in his face. "You're welcome," I said. "Enjoy the leftovers." And I walked out. That laugh, that line, it wasn't planned. It just came out. But it changed everything for me. Because for the first time since the breakup, I felt like I wasn't the one carrying the weight anymore. They were the ones who had to live with their choices, their ugliness, their hollow victories. I was free. In the weeks that followed, I started to look at that whole mess differently. Yeah, it hurt. Yeah, it was humiliating, but it also taught me something I couldn't have learned any other way. My value isn't defined by who chooses to betray me. It's defined by how I choose to respond. And I chose not to let them win. Funny thing is, a year later, I heard through the grapevine that they broke up. Something about trust issues, go figure. Apparently the same guy who mocked me for working too much wasn't exactly a model of consistency himself. She ended up moving back in with her parents. He sold the chain, and I kept going, got a promotion, met new people, started building a life that had nothing to do with her. Sometimes I think about that ring, not with bitterness anymore, but with a strange kind of gratitude, because if I hadn't bought it, if I hadn't gone through all that heartbreak, I might still be blind to what real loyalty looks like. That ring was never wasted. It was just repurposed. Not as a trophy for him, not as jewelry for her, but as a lesson for me. So yeah, the wedding ring I bought ended up on her side dude's chain, and he thanked me for it. But here's the part he didn't realize. By thanking me, by flaunting it, he showed me exactly who he was. And in that moment, I stopped caring about either of them, because sometimes the best revenge isn't taking something back. It's moving so far forward they can't even see you anymore. That's part one. But the story doesn't end at the bar, because the aftermath, the rebuilding, the unexpected encounters, the way that moment shaped me matters just as much. So let me carry you through that too. After that night, I thought I'd closed the book. But closure doesn't work like that. It sneaks up on you in pieces. For a while I kept replaying the scene in my head. The way he smirked. The way she looked at me with that mix of guilt and defiance. The way I laughed. Sometimes I wondered if I should have fought. Should have ripped the chain off. Should have shouted every betrayal into the crowd. But then I'd remember how I walked out on my own terms. And I'd feel the calm wash back over me. Life started moving again. I got serious about myself in ways I'd never been before. Started running more, cooking instead of eating out. Even tried picking up guitar again like I'd always said I would. It was like that ring, that whole situation, had been a weight holding me down. And once I let go, I had space to grow. Then came the twist I didn't see coming. About 6 months later, I was at a friend's barbecue. Sun was out. Grill was smoking. Kids running around the yard. I was laughing with some buddies when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned and there she was, alone. For a second it felt like time rewound. Same eyes, same smile that once made my chest ache with warmth. But this time I didn't feel that pull. I just felt curious. She asked if we could talk, and against my better judgment, I agreed. We stepped aside and she started with the usual apologies, explanations, the kind of words people rehearse in the mirror when they realize what they've lost. She said things like, "I didn't appreciate you then, and he wasn't what I thought he was." I listened, really listened, but the whole time I kept thinking, these words don't matter anymore. They're too late. When she finished, I just nodded. "I hope you find what you're looking for," I said, and that was it. No second chances, no drawn-out drama, just closure. Because here's the truth. The ring, the betrayal, the humiliation, It all shaped me. It hurt, yeah, but it also freed me. It showed me what I could survive. It showed me who I didn't need in my life, and it cleared the space for me to figure out what real love, real partnership would look like when it finally came around. So if you ever find yourself where I was, standing in front of someone who betrayed you, watching the symbol of your love turned into a joke, remember this: their actions say everything about them, and nothing about your worth. And sometimes the best thing you can do is laugh, walk away, and start living the kind of life that makes their little trophies meaningless. Because trust me, there's no chain strong enough to hold you down once you realize you were always the prize. Walking out of that bar that night, after laughing in his face and saying, "You're welcome," I felt this weird cocktail of emotions. On one hand, I was shaking with anger, my hands literally trembling on the steering wheel as I sat in the car, staring out at the glowing neon sign above the door. On the other hand, there was this strange lightness, like I'd just set something heavy down. For months I'd been carrying that ring like a ghost, keeping it buried in my drawer as if its presence still meant something. And then suddenly it was out there, hanging around his neck, and instead of breaking me, it freed me. I sat there in the car, replaying the moment in my head, over and over, trying to figure out if I should have done more. Should I have ripped it off him? Should I have called her out right there in front of everyone? Should I have just smashed the ring into the floor and said, "If you want my leftovers, you can pick them out of the dirt"? But then, the more I thought about it, the more I realized what I had actually done was better. Because walking away while laughing, that was power. That was me refusing to give them the satisfaction of seeing me unravel. Still, the aftermath wasn't easy. For weeks I couldn't stop seeing that smirk of his, couldn't stop hearing her silence behind him. Silence, that was the worst part. She didn't defend me, didn't stop him, didn't even look ashamed, just stood there, letting him parade around with something that was supposed to symbolize my love for her. I'd wake up at night sweating, the image of the ring flashing in my mind. Sometimes I'd dream that I had actually proposed, that she'd said yes, that we were married, only to wake up and remember reality. Those were the worst mornings. The kind where the sunlight feels too harsh, where coffee tastes bitter, where every song on the radio sounds like it's mocking you. But life keeps moving, whether you want it to or not. I still had to go to work, still had to pay bills, still had to smile at co-workers who had no idea I was carrying this storm inside. And slowly, bit by bit, the storm began to come. One of the first shifts came when I realized I wasn't checking her social media anymore. In the beginning, I'd torture myself scrolling through her photos, zooming in on the details. Was that his hand in the corner of the picture? Was that ring chain glinting on his chest in the background? I used to look for proof of my humiliation, like somehow staring at it would make it hurt less. But one day, I just stopped. I didn't care anymore. Her life wasn't my business. Instead, I started putting that energy back into myself. I picked up running again. Even though at first my lungs burned after 5 minutes, I forced myself to cook meals instead of ordering takeout. I even dusted off the guitar that had been sitting in my closet for years. My fingers ached. My strumming sounded awful, but it gave me something else to focus on besides replaying that night at the bar. And here's where life likes to throw curveballs. About 6 months later, I was at a friend's barbecue, just one of those casual Saturday afternoon things. Burgers on the grill, kids running around spraying each other with water guns, everyone holding red plastic cups. I was finally feeling like myself again, laughing with some buddies, when I felt a tap on my shoulder. I turned around and there she was. For a second it felt like someone pressed rewind on my life. She looked the same hair, same eyes, same smile that once melted me from the inside out. But standing there, I didn't feel that pull anymore. I felt distance, like I was looking at someone I used to know, someone from another lifetime. She asked if we could talk. My gut said no, but my curiosity said yes. So we stepped aside into the quieter part of the yard, and she started in with the apologies. "I didn't appreciate you when I had you. I thought he was what I needed, but he wasn't. You were always working for us, and I twisted that into thinking you didn't care." I just listened, really listened. I didn't interrupt, didn't argue, didn't even roll my eyes. And when she finished, I realized something huge. Her words didn't affect me anymore. They didn't sting, didn't ignite anger, didn't pull at old wounds. They just passed through me like air. So when she looked at me, waiting for a response. All I said was, "I hope you find what you're looking for." And that was it. No second chance. No dramatic confrontation. Just closure. Because here's the thing. That ring, that night at the bar, that humiliation, it all taught me something I never would have learned otherwise. My worth isn't tied to whether or not she chooses me. It isn't tied to what he wears around his neck. It isn't tied to whether I get the apology I think I deserve. My worth is mine. Period. From that moment on, I started living differently, not out of spite, not to prove them wrong, but because I finally understood that I had been giving pieces of myself away to people who didn't deserve them. And once you realize that, once you reclaim those pieces, there's no chain strong enough to weigh you down again. Funny thing is, not long after that, I heard they broke up. Word was she caught him cheating with someone else. Go figure. The man who mocked me for working too much couldn't even keep his own promises. She ended up moving back in with her parents. He pawned off the chain. When I heard that, I didn't feel triumphant. I didn't feel like karma had finally done me a favor. I just felt indifferent. Their drama wasn't my story anymore. My story was mine to write, and it had nothing to do with that. The ring, the betrayal, the humiliation, it all became part of my past, and the past only has as much power as you let it. I stopped letting it define me. I stopped letting it bleed into every room I walked into, and once I did, doors started opening. New people, new opportunities, new moments that didn't carry the weight of old ghosts. Sometimes I think back to that night at the bar, the way he tapped the ring and thanked me for it, and now, years later, I can actually smile about it, because what he thought was a trophy was actually just a mirror, reflecting exactly who he was, and who I wasn't anymore. And if there's one thing I want you to take from my story, it's this. Sometimes the thing that humiliates you most is the very thing that frees you. Sometimes the ring you thought was wasted turns out to be the lesson you needed. Because the truth is, I was never the fool in that story. I was the guy who loved deeply, who sacrificed, who dreamed of forever. That's not foolish. That's human. And the fact that I could walk away from betrayal without losing myself, that's strength. So yeah, the wedding ring I bought ended up on her side dude's chain, and he thanked me for it. But in the end, the real thanks goes the other way, because that moment, as twisted as it was, gave me back my life.